Today's topic.
He says he was sitting on his porch around 2 a.m. Saturday when he saw his neighbor's doors open.
And I noticed all the lights were on, it was bright, and I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, and I thought best to go call the police.
So he called and waited for a squad car and planned to talk to officers when they got there. But he says it happened so quickly. And when it was over, his 28-year-old neighbor, Tatiana Jefferson, was dead.
Oh, I'm so tired. You know what the problem is? The problem is I'm trying to understand this, and there's really nothing to understand. There's nothing to understand. Like, I'm trying to make sense, and the more I'm trying to make sense of this, the worse it gets.
First, I want to talk about the neighbor.
I'm devastated because people say, well, James, it's not your fault, you're not your fault. But I made a call.
Neighbor was concerned for his neighbor, Tatiana, and seeing the door open, decided to make a non-emergency call. Police came and killed her. And this neighbor's response to what happened is that he felt guilty. It would be like you seeing smoke coming out of a house. You call the fire department. They set the house on fire, and you blame yourself. Do you understand? In his head, what he's internalized is that I called killers on my neighbor. And now he has to live with that trauma his entire life.
That's what it is, though.
And then think about the 8-year-old nephew who was playing video games with Tatiana when that shooting happened. And eventually he's going to have to learn to just swallow all the images that he had to see as an 8-year-old and start moving on. And that trauma that he has is never going to really be addressed. And he's going to carry that with him for the rest of his life. You don't know how trauma and huge experiences that you deal with that as a kid affect you later on in life. And what you recognize is that cycle of violence, that cycle of trauma is so common in our neighborhoods. There's so many young black people growing up in that. And it's a scary place to raise your child in.
That's funny because I remember when I was growing up, we were driving around the neighborhood going back home. It was a rule in the car that it was illegal to open the lights inside the car. Mm-hmm. My parents said that a few times. No, you can't do that. You're not allowed. Like, now I get it. They just didn't want to attract attention. Being the only black people in that neighborhood, they don't want to attract attention. Cops or whatever. They told me if there was a problem, look for an adult. Don't bother the cops. Later on in life, I sat down and understood what they were trying to say. They were trying to have the talk with me without traumatizing me because my surrounding was white. At the end of the day, dealing with the police, I had to be very careful.
And I'm going to need everybody to stop talking about Tatiana and how much of a good person she is. Because when you guys start to look towards her good qualities to make this shooting even more indefensible, what ends up happening is that you devalue the lives of people who may have been astray in their personal life a little bit, and you justify their murder. So you look at Tatiana. She had a perfect clean record. There's no reason to shoot her. But because Eric Gardner was selling loose cigarettes, it somehow more justifies this murder. We have this narrative that we're starting to play into even as black people where we feel the need to justify someone's life based off of their record. Listen, I've not always been a good person. In my younger years, I was a troublemaker. Now today, with my military service, with my place in society and how I'm involved in the community, people would say I'm an upstanding citizen. But if I get into shooting at 18 and people justify that because I was a little bit of a shithead then I never get to be the better human being I have today. And when you kill someone at any point, regardless of their criminal record, you rob them of their ability to become a rehabilitated human being. So I don't want to hear nobody tell me about how much of a good human being. What I know is somebody was shot in their own home.
For nothing.
For nothing. And that's all I need to know. Everything else is irrelevant to this discussion. I don't care that she was a churchgoer. I don't care that she was a mother of 20 kids. I don't care if it's Mother Teresa or the fucking kid who stole from a granny last week.
The fact?
You cannot shoot them in their house.
For nothing.
So I don't want to see no hugging from judges, no Bibles, no awkward forgiveness ceremonies. I don't want to hear about a police department releasing images of a gun that had nothing to do with the shooting when it was sitting on the dresser. Don't release that image and then afterwards say the police officer was in the wrong. If he's in the wrong, why did you release that image to fit a certain narrative? Whenever these shootings happen, especially around black people, you recognize that they use specific type of photos. So even the media plays into that narrative. Even if this man goes to jail for life, nothing's going to change.
Nope.
Because as a society, and this is all over the world, you go anywhere, blackness is viewed as lesser than, disposable, ugly.
A threat.
Go to India, their caste system, you'll see, based off darkness, not very positive.
Go to
Caribbean. Africa, skin bleaching, billion-dollar industry. The darker you are, the worse you are.
Caribbean, same thing.
Go anywhere around the world. And darkness is not well viewed. And until we change our perception of dark people, of darker skin, our internal bias that affects our split-second decisions will always remain. Because if you think about this incident, this was a split-second decision. This was a white police officer who entered a black neighborhood and he was already on guard. Okay? He saw a black woman in her home. Saw a gun on the dresser, immediately went to the highest form of threat. You think this happened in white neighborhoods? Of course not. Because of that bias, that officer didn't have the time to react.
You have whole shooter is getting captured alive.
The discussion on blackness is, I think, why so many black people all over the world react when a shooting happens in America. Is because we understand that feeling of being feared, of being seen as a danger, as being seen as squashable just on the basis of our skin. And that's pervasive everywhere. Everywhere. And so when we see what's happening in America, it's a microcosm of what's happening all over the world.